I mean, David and I are one, so if it's just us, I think that's fine too. But I feel like, Dana, we went through so many things. I feel like we're golden.
Okay, so yeah, so just are we at the right place though, or is there a whole other meeting going on where they're having fun and we're missing it?
I mean, nobody's ever having as much fun.
Okay, so did you guys know that my mom was a realtor?
Nope.
Yeah, my mom was a realtor for, there's probably, somebody might be on old enough to remember, but the company was called BK Steel. And it was a really, really high-end real estate firm. It was very limited, did, you know, just the high-end stuff. They didn't touch anything below 100,000. I mean, actually, but 100,000 back when I'm talking about when she was a realtor, you could buy a house in, you know, well, here's one on Ambassador Drive for exactly $100,000. So, but I wanted to point out, this is just kind of funny. Here on one page, okay, is the listing agreement.
Wow.
This listing agreement is from 1974, one page.
That's cool.
It's also interesting to see that this is the real estate board contract. And this contract is dated 1972, and the form is published by the board in 1963. One page, the entire contract.
Love
Okay.
it.
But by 1977, unfortunately, we had started the inexorable process to where we are today, because the contract is now in 1977, 2 pages long. And I could go get one from today and show you the 15 pages that it is, and we don't need to. But isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
Yep. So why didn't you go into real estate?
Well, by the time my mom was I don't know, should I tell them the whole story, Heather? Okay. You don't know the story probably, but my mom got out of the real estate business. She married well, and then she was able to get out of the business completely. So
There we go. We picked up some people.
but isn't that
Do you
interesting?
need to be the host or anything?
A one-page contract. Kim, did you see the contracts?
No, she wasn't there.
Look at, here's the listing agreement, one page.
That's
19,
nuts.
1974, one page listing agreement. How about this one just kills me. This is a purchase offer from 1972. It was on the board form that was promulgated August 28th, 1963, one page.
Wow,
The acceptance and everything all on one page.
that's crazy.
All right, let's get this show going. You want to get the show
Okay,
going?
does anybody have any questions before
Do
we talk
you
about
need me to
anything?
make you host or try to,
Are you
No, it's
staying
fine.
on? Are you leaving us? You're leaving us.
I can stay on.
I mean, you can make us host if you'd like.
Okay, but does anybody, we could just.
I'll
if
stay
there's-
on. How's that? And I'll just
Okay,
mute
there's just a
myself because
few
I'm up front.
people. Does anybody have any questions? I was just gonna point out a couple of things I thought were worth conversation, and then we could be done. So, who sent us that question today? Karen Hilbert.
Yep.
Karen Hilbert sent us a question today that she can't be here to answer. But it was a question, she was suggesting that people are making multiple offers on multiple pieces of property at the same time.
I'm not, but I've heard that's happening.
Yeah, and she asked me if that was legal and whether there was a specific notice that needed to be provided for that. And I don't think there is. I mean, I don't think you can make 2 offers on 2 properties at the same time. You could be buying 2 properties at the same time. Who knows? So I don't think there's anything necessarily required. I mean, obviously, one of them would be turned down at approval by the attorney. And obviously, you're not making a lot of friends doing that, but it's not illegal. And I don't think there's any specific description or disclosure that needs to go along with that. That's interesting. But the other thing I wanted to question was, I had an idea of, are you guys putting your clients' email addresses on the contract? Or are you in some way trying to ascertain who the buyers and the sellers' emails are? And I say that because the special notices, according to the contract, can be sent by email. And it is the only way to do it. I mean, compared to the opposite situation, it's
Of
a
trying to certify mail them is what you're
Oh,
saying.
it's
Trying to
terrible. It's
certify it
terrible.
to serve the parties. We have to have those emails on the contract.
And it
I
takes,
try to fill out the admin page completely.
right. But
Yes.
then everybody's got everybody's email. I'm not sure that that's absolutely essential, but I can tell you this: if you know and you can confirm that you have the client's email, you can send out the notice of like time of the essence, and it's effective as of the minute you send it out, and it is a huge benefit. So it's something I think everybody really has to consider. If you don't want to put it on the contract, at least collect it so that, and with some level of certainty that you know that's the correct email, so that you can send that out if I need to send it out. Remember, only the attorney or only the party or the attorney for the party can actually send out the special notices. So that means I have to send it out, okay? And if you can give me the client's email, I can email it directly to them, and it's effective that minute. So it's really the only way to go. That was one thing. And then the other thing is, I don't know, Kim, if I should send this to you, but there's the language on there is still confusion as to what it means when you say you're so-called going to make up the gap in the appraisal. Okay. And I drafted some language, which I can send out to somebody, or Heather can, that basically says this: the buyer agrees to tender at closing. The difference between the purchase price and lender's reduced loan amount, if any, resulting from the lender's appraisal not matching the purchase price. Okay, because that's really what's happening. You're not really having to come up with, it just so happens that mathematically, if the appraisal is $10,000 short, the client does not have to come up with $10,000 additional dollars. Mathematically, it just doesn't work that way. If for some reason, based upon the percentages, of the mortgage is always based on a percentage. It's always less than the actual difference. However, it's not, people don't understand it. I mean, the clients are not understanding it, and even the other attorneys aren't understanding what it really, I mean, I'm getting emails saying we have to reduce the purchase price. I mean, what are you talking about? My client's not going to reduce the purchase price because your mortgage didn't work out. Okay. You need to come up with the difference. The mortgage, the appraisal is the basis upon which the bank is willing to lend. Okay. And so when the appraisal is reduced from the purchase price, the percentage of the loan to value that the bank is calculating is now going to be calculated against that reduced appraisal amount, not the purchase price. So
David, if you can send over that document to me, or Heather, I am happy to pass it along to leadership. We have an office meeting coming up next week, so that's something that we can touch upon in that office meeting, and then we can put that specific wording so that our agents have access to it.
Right, just suggest it to the agents that when you put this clause in, which really is another thing, Kim, to talk about sometime, is that, I have this idea of trying to standardize all of these contingencies. The furnace. I mean, I see
The wording on all of them,
I
right?
see 1,000 different furnace to be cleaned, furnace to be cleaned and inspected, furnace to be. I mean, there's no consistency to furnace to be cleaned with receipts. When? Who knows when? When is it supposed to be done? When is it? I mean, there should be a clause that we all agree on, which is the clause that is, and I can work with you, Kim, on this because I have ideas on all these clauses that we send out to the agents at KW and say, hey, this is the clause when you want to have this furnace inspected, this is what we should say.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
Because it just creates problems.
Sure.
Oh, I did get inspected. I mean, the guy's got to have a letterhead or something, right? I mean, you get these like pre-printed receipts that have nothing on them that looks like he bought it at So I don't know. Okay,
Ace Hardware.
yes. And then what else, Heather? I thought we had one other thing. Do we? I wanted to talk about the email.
Hang on one second. Let me just pull it up because Alex had sent an email this morning. The appraisal gap. Well, oh, that was the language. We
Yeah,
already
that's
did
what I
that.
worked
Okay.
on that. Yeah.
Yep. So that was the only feedback that I really got. We talked about the phone
And I
numbers.
guess the last thing is I
And
could
then-
just put
Yeah.
out there that we have had some problems already this summer with conditional approval letters, okay? And the attorneys no one relating to the condition, and as a consequence, we're getting, we're putting in the conditional approval letter, pool to be inspected, or $1,000 escrow for this, or whatever it is. And we're getting the closing and whatever, and it's just not done at all, and no one pays any attention to them. And it's really started to really annoy me, number one, and number two, it's just not doing our clients any benefit. So
Sure.
we're gonna start now sending out any condition on any approval letter. It's gonna need to be countersigned by the clients. And the fact is, with it, 5 years ago, I would have heard a lot of moaning and groaning, but with Identisign and DocuSign, et cetera, there's no reason why we can't just send this out to the clients and get their acknowledgement on any condition that's in the approval letter. So I am going to send out with Nancy Rogers, you will be getting these, don't complain. You will be getting a letter, from me that here's my conditional approval letter. Okay. I please circulate it and get it DocuSigned. Okay. And get it back to me. And it says right in there that if I don't get this back and signed, this is my attempt to force the hand. If I don't get it back and signed, we're relying on the fact that you didn't execute it. And that reliance basically creates a situation where we're going to assume that you agree to it.
David,
That
who
doesn't
signed
help you
that?
100%.
Your
Yes?
client
What's that?
or both buyer and seller? Who's signing?
Everybody, the other attorney, me, and the clients. So it really benefits all of us. If it's about the pool, if it's about the closing date, whatever it is. I mean, it's too bad because it used to be you could rely on everybody to kind of, if you didn't agree with it, get back to you, but it's just those days are gone. And I've had attorneys just tell me, oh, we didn't do it. I didn't, it's just an approval letter. We didn't agree to it. Okay, fine.
I have a question.
What's that?
Post-possession. You know how many times since here recently, the buyers will allow the sellers to stay for maybe up to 60 days for free. When that happens, we should still have both attorneys drafting some sort of post-possession agreement, correct?
Absolutely. You got to have a possession agreement in every event. Yep.
Yeah,
No
the agreement,
question.
and the other thing that I was saying too is that the sellers that were, a lot of people are trying to waive that seller security deposit being held back too. Have you seen that, David? I don't know, if buyer, how
A
comfortable.
lot more.
Yeah,
You
I'm
gotta
not
have
comfortable with that as a buyer's attorney, right, David? We're not.
seller's attorney.
Seller's
Either
But
way,
on the
you
buyer.
gotta have a deposit. Gotta have a
I
deposit.
really do think so. I really do think so. So waive the rent all you guys want, but you got to protect the buyers on those purchases, I feel like. With some sort of a security deposit, even if it's $500, I mean, something is better than nothing if there's something wrong. So we are seeing that. We are seeing a lot of those, Tina, too. Those and no inspections, which always make us super comfortable.
Yeah, the other thing is that we are now sending out an engagement letter on every transaction, right, Heather?
On our purchase
On the
transaction.
purchases.
Yeah, on our
So
purchase
we're
transactions.
sending out a very detailed engagement letter that basically says what the deal is and what we're doing. We're not representing you for every problem that happens after the closing. I had somebody email me the other day, are you going to help us finish this closing? It closed a year ago. And just like, with our termite problem or whatever it is. I mean, trying to shame me into like helping her, like, I'm sorry, but that was a year ago.
I'm twitching right now
Why?
over that.
Oh,
The
no,
shame.
so
I'm
but
twitching.
it does. I think Kim, maybe you should think about this too, is that I also really would think you guys might want to consider some kind of additional writing at time of listing, et cetera, about the price, about the condition, about the lack of inspection. I mean, if I were, well, we are concerned. We drafted this engagement letter, okay, partially because we wanted to get out front of, we do not look at the inspections, okay? We do not look at the property condition disclosure. We do not look at the septic inspections. We do not have anything to do with the condition of the house. What else does it say? I mean, we were concerned. I mean, we once in a while get an email back that says, you know, there was an issue on the property disclosure that you didn't talk to me about. And we got to make it clear. And I think you guys got to be concerned about this too, that I'm not reviewing the septic inspection. This came up in the last meeting too, and I reiterated again, is that, you know, I saw one where the agent sent out the septic inspection to the client and said, this looks great, sign it. Well, it ended up that the septic inspection was not great. In fact, it was a problem about 6 months later. So it's somewhat the same problem that we have, you guys have too, which is got to be careful contextualizing these inspections. You know,
I have a follow-up question. So, and part of this is because my real estate started in Pennsylvania without attorneys, and you guys know I'm still trying to learn how the attorneys, you know, always figure into the transaction. I'd love to know what it is you do look at and look for when I give you a client, for example.
well, essentially, what you can talk about that when we review the contract with the client. We go through and make sure all the essential terms are correct. We actually have a form that the person who opens the file fills out, and it's right in our system, and we check boxes. And it discusses to make sure that all the personal property is on the contract. I mean, basically, we're initially going at just the contract. Does the contract do what you want it to do? Here's the price, here's the mortgage amount, here's the closing date, you know, all these, here's the personal property included. Do you have a septic? Do you have a well? If there's a septic or a well, where is the property? What town are you in? Do you need permits? Is there a pool? All these are questions that we just go right through and just answer. So we're getting a sense for the contract. And then after that, on a sale, we're getting all the documents, the abstract and the survey and all. So we're following up on all that stuff. On the purchase, a lot of what the purchase in the sale is, to a great extent, we're just holding the people's hand. We know how to do it. They don't. We're just holding their hands. We're just going through the transaction. We're tracking the timing of the things that are supposed to happen to when they're supposed to happen. Mostly, okay. You got a June 10th closing date. Well, and Heather will tell you, we have meetings and everything. As of today, we have, let's say, next Friday's closing. We have 20 closings on for next Friday. Well, we look at the proposed closing dates, we track by the proposed closing dates, and we go through and say, hey, this one's supposed to close next week. We don't have title yet on it, or we don't have an abstract. We follow up. You know, so we're just essentially like, we're trying to drive the transaction. We're like the maestro of the orchestra, that we're trying to drive the transaction to close on the date that it's supposed to close. We're trying to make sure that you guys are arranging for I don't know if you get our emails or not, but hey, this one is closing, next Friday. You need to do a walkthrough. You need to get insurance. You need to do, those things. We're trying to drive all that. That's essentially what we spend a lot of our time on. The legal part of it is just making sure the title's good and working with the other attorneys on that, which, to tell you the truth, on 80% of the transactions is not much work at all. We know what we're doing. The seller's attorney knows what they're doing. It's typical objections. Got to pay off a mortgage. Got to do this, that. But the other 20% are just complete messes. And we spend 80% of our time on 20% of the transactions from a title point of view. Wouldn't you say, Heather?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that get handed off to David.
Right. There is just 80% of them go pretty good. You got good attorneys on all sides.
Right.
Everybody, it's the usual problems. We know what to do and it's fine. And then the 20% of them is just weird, old mortgages, easements, deeds, problems, all that stuff, people dying.
All right, David, I have a question for you if it's okay to ask.
Sure.
Betsy. So can you just clarify for me, because this is something I would love, I've been always wanting to know, is how many times does the title go back and forth between seller and buyer attorney, like on average? Can you just explain that to me if you don't mind?
Well, remember, the seller is producing the abstract and the survey.
Yep.
The abstract and the survey goes from the seller to the buyer,
The buyer's attorney.
the
Yeah.
buyer's attorney.
Mhm.
So there is no title per se. It's like a status thing. It's a ephemeral thing. So you go there, and then the buyer's attorney produces a title report, which is an analysis of the status of the title as of a particular date.
Okay.
So a lot of the times what you're talking about when you say title is you're talking about the title report.
Yeah, that's the problem. I think the title word is used super loose.
There's no such thing as
Yeah.
title. Title is a ephemeral thing that represents the fact that you own it, but it's not even anything in particular. It's a inchoate kind of thing floating out in the world. Title.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
and
not
so
even, the title is a title insurance, and it's not the title to the house because
right, there's an abstractive title, which is not the title. It's an abstract, you know, and an abstractive title is the chronological history of the property that is examined by the buyer's attorney or the buyer's insurance company to produce that title report. So you review the survey, review the abstract, and you look at it and you come up with, these are the problems.
Okay.
You know, this abstract, this mortgage never got discharged. It boom, goes on the title report.
And so then they go back to you and you have to clear it as the seller's
Yeah, so
attorney?
the buyer then sends that title report to me as the seller's attorney, and we flip around, and now our job is to clear that title, satisfy those objections.
And then you send it back to the buyer's?
No, we don't send it
attorney?
anywhere.
Okay,
Nothing,
I'm just trying to figure that out.
yeah, there's nothing else that really happens. We, in theory, are going to provide proof to the buyer's attorney, depending upon, again, what I was saying is, 80% of them, you can see this is Heather DiGuillio's mortgage. She gave it to Canandaigua National Bank. We don't worry about that. Gallo is going to get the payoff of that mortgage and everything's going to be fine. We don't even worry about it. Okay. But what happens is the seller's attorney will send back to me the usual stuff, just in a little letter. But then they'll also point out, this is screwed up. There's an old mortgage that never got paid off. The person who owned the property, there was a third person who's now dead, whatever it is. They let me know those objections. We work on it, and then we communicate with them. I got the deed for that. I got this fixed. I got that fixed. And, the thing gets cured as time goes by.
Right. I think it gets confusing too, Betsy, because on top of that, if there's a bank, the title has to get forwarded to the bank attorney as well.
Correct,
So after everything's all done, we have to forward it to yet a third party. So you're seeing
Right,
all
that's
of
true,
these emails.
right.
And if you ever want to go through this, I geek out on doing stuff like this. So
Ooh,
in
okay,
talking
good.
about it. No, seriously, I love to meet with, ask Dana, right, Dana? Didn't we just do this? I love doing this and explaining it because I just find that if you understand it all so much better, then it's just, you can go through and you're like, got it. Not, wait, what is this? What are they talking about? Because we do use title so loosely.
Very much so. I mean, I think everybody, it's just confusing. So that's why I'm like, can I have a status update? And then I get an update and I'm like, I don't know what that means, but
You
great.
don't know what that means. Then you forward it to me and you say, okay, what does this mean?
Right, but also,
I love that. I love it.
typically those are the status of it is one, that either the abstract's not done, and then that's the response. No abstract. We don't have the abstract yet. Number two is we have the abstract. The title report hasn't come back yet. We shipped it to our title company. It hasn't come back yet, the title report. The third status is, well, we have the title report. We gave the buyer's attorney all the, we gave the seller's attorney all the objections, but we don't have any answers yet on whether or not he can fix the problems.
Right.
So those are the three status points of like, what's the status on title? Well, we don't have the curative yet. They're not ready to go because they don't have the payoff of the mortgage.
Everybody just words it so differently, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't have, they say title docs from the seller's attorney. Well, title docs means the abstract in the survey. You know what I mean? Like it's so I get that confusion, but
Okay, thank you.
anytime you need help with that, let me know.
Great.
I geek out on it.
Okay. Too bad.
Oh,
Everybody
Keller
didn't-
Williams West is signing on now and we're signing off. Oh, you're both there. Oh, got it. Got it. We're
Hey.
switching. We're
Oh,
switching.
cool.
Oh, hey, you
Oh,
guys are
so
so
cool.
You're so cool.
What's going on, guys?
I don't know. We're saving the world pretty much. I showed him, I gotta show you the contract from
Oh, God, here we
1971.
go. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I think this is cool.
I think
One
you're
page contract.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Anita. Yes.
Okay. I had a situation happen with an attorney's office where the contract was written, I represented the seller. The contract was written where there would be no inspection, there were multiple offers, and just for information purposes only, okay? Guaranteed by the agent that they're not gonna make a big deal about anything unless it's something catastrophic. So I said, okay. So they did the full-blown inspection, they signed off on it, it was okay, you know. The day before closing on the walkthrough, I was there, the buyer was there, and so was the buyer's agent. And they're looking at some of the things that were on the report and said, oh, wow, this mark on the ceiling, which was like a watermark from a previous incident, looks worse than it was the day that we came through to inspect. I said, well, nothing's changed. The house has, you know, been empty just for the last 2 weeks. Nothing's changed, you know. And so she said, okay, well, and I said, you know, they're leaving you the washer, the dryer, you never asked for it. Okay. So I said, you know, in light of anything you might think is wrong, I said, you know, just maybe these things will make up for it. But I said, nothing has really changed. So they said, okay, everything's good. So I leave the walkthrough. The next thing I know, now I didn't find this out until the weekend, it closed on a Friday. My seller tells me the attorney's office, okay, who I recommended, called her directly from the closing table and said, they want a $500 credit. What are we gonna do? And I mean, she didn't call me, nobody let me know, the agent didn't call me, the attorney didn't call me. So they put my senior seller on the spot. What would you have done if that was your office?
I would have emailed you first. I would have said, hey, got this email, have this request, what's going on? That's what I would have done if I would have gotten anything from the client first. What
Even
would
if it was an hour or two before closing?
Mhm.
Same.
Okay.
It makes you wonder whether we shouldn't have everybody sign off. There's two things that I think is the best practice consideration. One is to require, even if you're not there, somehow get a sign off from the other agent or from somebody saying, I'm going to assume that the walkthrough is fine. Unless you give me a sign off letting me know whatever issues are there. Because there's two things. The first thing is that the issues on the walkthrough need to be solved at the walkthrough.
Agreed.
But supposedly they were.
Right.
Well, then have them sign something and then you're done. Then you're done.
Have them do
You
a
know,
sign off of.
We have a lot of realtors that do send us signed sign offs on the walkthrough.
Now, Anita, were you were the listing agent on this transaction, right? That's,
Yes.
yeah,
yes,
so I guess I mean, and you were there, you were at the final walkthrough?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to have them sign something.
First of all, good for you. Thank you.
Thank you for going to it because
No, seriously, nobody does that. So
nobody
thank you.
goes anymore. And that's a little.
But then
that's
here you
not a
go,
best
here you
practice.
go, and it didn't go well because, you know, anyway. But
Every
Well,
time
and I blame the other agent because I said, you should know better. I was there. You didn't tell me, and I'm sure you knew when you left that driveway what you were going to do. She
Yeah.
said, no, I had no idea. I
right,
said, you had no idea your buyer wanted a credit.
right. But Anita, the thing is if you do get something in writing, you protect yourself and everybody else. Because the problem is, and that's why I do say the best practice, and when I mean best practice, I mean things that bother us, because I think it should be done differently and better. The best practice is really you've got to have something signed at that walkthrough, so that if the issue comes up, see the problem we have is I get to closing and I find out there's a stain. I don't know the stain. I've never seen the stain. I've never been at the house. I have no idea what they're talking about. So it puts me at such a disadvantage of trying to argue one way or the other about anything. You know, if I have that letter saying you did the walkthrough and everything's fine, I'll tell them to no, you're not getting anything from I won't even call my client. I got something here saying it's signed that everything's fine. Or even if it is, my client wants $500 for the thing, you're the one who's been at the house, et cetera, that can look at the other agent and the client and say, you're full of it. This is
Right.
exactly the way it was. See, I can't say that.
Right,
I can't
because
say that because I was never
nobody
there.
even gave me a heads up. Not the agent, not the attorney's office. And of course, my seller didn't think
No,
about
it's terrible.
calling me.
It's a bad thing.
Okay,
Well, we would call you absolutely because you're the only one who knows whether or not that's true.
Right.
right. Well, and that's why no offense, I will never use that attorney's office again. So,
So there you go. Well, we're here.
thank you.
No, in all
Okay.
seriousness, whenever it comes to these walkthrough things, my first reaction is I take that and I send it to you as the realtor and I say, are you aware of this? Do you know? What are the discussions? Because it is an uncomfortable position to be in for us to, after we've done the final closing statement, especially as with a seller, right? We've done the closing statement, they have their final closing statement, we have these
Right.
walkthrough issues, and now we're like, we don't know. So that's
Right.
my gut reaction is to send
Right,
it.
and the only reason I really think you need to get something signed, or at least some acknowledgement, is because you do put the seller at a disadvantage when the buyer walks into the closing and says, I want $500. That's why you need to get something signed, because that's just not fair, and it's certainly not fair to your seller client to be put in that position. If there's an issue at the walkthrough, and this is what I try to get everybody, if there's an issue at the walkthrough, it needs to be resolved, or at least as a proposed resolve at the walkthrough. The really good work, some of the really good realtors that we work with, we get the email or the call that says there was a problem at the walkthrough, the seller's going to give a $500 credit. I mean, they just resolve it at the thing. You're there, you can see it. You know
Right.
what the problem is. I had one a while back that was like the chimney, some problem with the chimney, and I spent like hours trying to negotiate a solution to the problem and all that. And in the end, I was completely wrong about what the problem was.
Right.
Because I'd never seen it. It was fake. It was fake. I thought it was the actual chimney part of the chimney, and it wasn't. There were a whole bunch of fake bricks in front of it was just not what I thought it was. So that's the other problem. So that's why you really need, this walkthrough is good except for what? List it, so we have something to talk about.
How many of your agents actually give you a sign off at the walkthrough?
25%, Heather, would you say?
Not enough.
Not enough, but
Okay.
25%.
Right.
But it works. It is the way to do it. And if there's an issue, try to resolve it right there.
Right.
Right. But if you don't know about it, you can't. So,
That's
And then
correct. Unless if you have them sign something that says it's okay, you will know about it.
okay. And they can't
That's
go
the
back
thing.
on that.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, it puts us in not having seen it and such. It puts us in an impossible situation that is detrimental to your seller client.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
If there's an issue with it, let's tell me what it is now, and I'll talk to my client, and I'll talk to the realtor, and we can look at it again, and we can figure out what this is. Not that I don't want to do the work. It's just that it really is not a good practice. It's to the detriment of your seller client.
Yes.
Not to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Who's the boss? We're done?
You
Okay.
said something
Wow.
earlier about being proactive about ordering a survey.
Oh, yes. Good. So, yes. So what that was is, we can use you, Dana, right? So Dana sent me, now this is our second transaction. So she sent me a client and she says, we did their purchase, and she said, oh, by the way, we're listing their property and I'm going to put it on the market. I'm going to say May 15th is the date. It might have been, it might not have been, but May 15th. And this is the beginning of May. Just wanted to let you know, I'm going to reaffirm to you, we ordered the abstract and the survey map right away at that time, knowing, especially in the market that we have, right, that we can locate the abstract, we can get going on the survey. I mean, the houses are going to sell. What are the percentage, right, David, of transactions?
Less than 1%.
Right. And we have great relationships with our vendors that if something happened and it didn't sell, then, we would just cancel it. So it's really, So if you have a listing that you're getting ready to, and you know it's going to be hot and you want to do quick close and your sellers want to close, you get the listing agreement signed and send it over and we get everything ordered right away. We open what we call dummy files.
And I know that some entities, title companies have tried to institutionalize this as a practice among a broad segment of the agents, et cetera.
Right.
And it never has really worked. And it's interesting because I've always said, you need to approach the agents separately, each one individually, and say, look, we're going to work with you. You send me an email on this and we will get this done. Everybody here, we don't, and yeah, we want the deal and all, but look, the fact is that you are doing your seller such a service by ordering the abstract and the survey as soon as you know they're selling the house. I cannot, in this environment that we live in, I cannot underestimate, or you just can't imagine what a benefit you're doing for your client by ordering that abstract and survey up front. It is, I mean, Heather, what's holding, let's say we have 50 transactions pending, okay, right now, that are supposed to close in the next 10 days or 100 days, whatever. And how many of those would you say, Heather, are not closing on time because of either a survey or abstract delay?
Right now?
Yeah. I'd say 20%.
I was going to say not as many as last year when it got bottom.
But we're not there yet either. We're not really there yet. We're not in the big problem quite yet. Yep. This year was actually delayed a little bit. The volume, the mass volume was a little delayed this year. We had a slower April this year by far than we did last year. I don't know if you guys did, but we did. And in last year, January and February were really busy, and this year less so. But it's ramping up now, and the big delays are going to come in the next 35, 40 days.
I agree. And then the closing date time frame as well is I'm seeing contracts come in with the dated June 1st or June 2nd, and they want to close by June 20th.
Right. And there is no way. If you ordered the abstract May 1st, because you knew the house was going to get listed, even if you know it's going to get listed, it doesn't need to be listed. If you really know they're selling, they bought a house in Florida, right? I mean, these people are selling. They haven't signed the listing yet. They're not going to put it on the market yet because they're not really ready, et cetera, et cetera. But they bought a house in Florida and they're selling, okay? You just email us and say, I got this client, they're going to sell. Can you order this stuff? We're going to order it. Because we know that that's going to make it easier for us, and it's going to make it a lot easier for you. I mean, and I can't tell you what a service you're doing.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Do you want me to do that here? Not David. That is not an email for you. If you want.
Actually, it is. If you want to get a deal, you email me and say, what are the fees? Okay. If you want the real fees, you call Heather, because I'm always like, oh, 400 is fine.
I always walk into his office after he does this, Betsy. I walk into his office. I'm like, please, David, stop quoting attorney fees and then not telling me. Betsy, yes, I will send you an email separately with our fees and what to expect. Maybe even a copy of that engagement letter, David, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Could I have the email too with the fees on, Heather?
Yes, of course. Yep.
So you guys are amazing and are always, every time we do a deal and you guys are on the other side, you're so amazing and get back to us right away. And I feel like it's very smooth. My question is, are you even taking on new agents and new clients? Because how do you even do it all? I feel like,
well, do you want to share that,
David? On that? What?
Did you want to share that, David? Because I feel like we just hired an army.
We've been talking about it. Honestly, the problem isn't the overall volume. We can certainly handle that. The problem is someone like Heather that does such an excellent job. People really want to work with Heather, Heather. And Heather can handle every transaction. So what we've actually striving to do, we have other very, very talented people that aren't necessarily as outgoing as Heather, but they're very skilled at the actual job of doing what they're supposed to do. And what we're trying to do is split off. We're kind of what we've decided to do is split off the transactions based on difficulty. And we're taking some of the sales that are really kind of, you still need Heather to work the sales from the people point of view, but she doesn't really need to track those files. It's most of the sales. Actually, what happens is 90% of the sales, you're doing the job. You're ordering this, you're ordering that, you're getting this to that person at this time. You're making sure that that got done, all that kind of stuff. And then when there's problems, okay, the problems typically come to me. Because if you got a problem on a sale that's like a problem, like, oh my God, that comes to me. Heather doesn't even need to be involved because typically it's just going to Heather, then Heather's bringing it to me. We can have these people that are tracking these sale files just bring it directly to me. So
Right.
what
I don't have to draft the documents. I don't do any of that. I run through, just make sure everything's staying on track. I keep up with the communication with the clients and with the agents and that kind of stuff. So it's a
right,
lot of,
but not really doing. So what we're doing is we're taking some of the sale files from Heather and moving them to other totally talented, qualified people and having them track them and do them. And in that way, that's how we can get new clients, have Heather deal with some of the new clients and still keeping moving the whole thing forward. You know what I
and
mean?
then he likes to pick on me and tell me that I don't do anything.
No, it's
I
a
know.
very difficult job, as you can imagine. You guys have 20 files at one time. We have hundreds.
Yeah.
And the clients are no nice. You just still got the bad clients. You got the same problems, that.
No, you get the bad clients. We get the
Right.
good clients. I'm like, oh, this one's yours, David.
Yeah, I know.
Great,
I
well,
do. I do. I deal with all the bad clients. It's a real skill. It's a real skill. I've gotten so good at it. It's just unbelievable. I call up some people that are just complete jerks and they love us by the time I'm done. And it's just,
Wow.
sometimes I call them up and I just don't say anything. I wait for them to speak and they talk. I don't say anything. They just want to talk, and it's been a real, and I'll tell you, I've gotten better at it in the last 5 to 7 years. I mean, you get better at these things as time goes by, even though I've been doing it for a long time. Okay.
Heather, you're like the Aaron Brockovich of real estate attorneys.
Well, thank you. I love that. If only I could look like Julia Roberts, I would feel so much better.
You're not that far away. Okay.
She's fantastic. Thank you so much, Anita.
Yeah,
All right.
I appreciate that.
yeah.
All right, everybody. I will send you an email with that information. And if you have any other questions, just let either David or I know.
Okay,
I'm always
Thank
on
you.
my email. David's not as
Yeah,
much
me
as I am, but.
okay. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you.
Fancy.
All right,
Thank
have a
you.
good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for everything.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.